In section 4.5, we're going to be multiplying polynomials by monomials. And so just remember a polynomial, think of it as two or more terms. So looking at example 1, you have y times the binomial y minus 2. So just like when we distribute a number that's in front of a quantity or a parentheses, we're going to distribute the y. So think of it as if Mrs. Russell is giving a test, she's going to distribute it to everyone in the class, not just the first person. That wouldn't be fair. So if you want to write your steps out, you would say y times y, which is really y squared, minus y times 2, which is minus 2y. Now remember, that's as far as you can go. You can't combine y squareds with y's. Now this step right here, you'll see me not do every single time. But if you were to write out your steps, that's what we'd actually do. So we'll do that probably in the first few. All right, on example 2, what are you distributing? You're distributing that monomial, which happens to be a negative 3b. So we're going to distribute it, which means negative 3b times each of these terms. So if you were to write out your steps, it would be negative 3b times 2b to the second minus 3b times a 4b minus 3b times a negative 1. And then we would simplify. So a negative 3b times that first term, 2b squared, is going to be negative 6b to the third. Then we have a negative 3b times 4b, which is a minus 12b to the second. And then we have a negative 3b times a negative 1, which is positive 3b. And so notice when you distribute a negative, all of these signs on this trinomial, like we now have opposite signs, because when you're distributing a negative, you're going to have the opposite signs. All right, looking at example 3, I'll probably stop writing that step where I actually write it out, but if you need to write it out, write it out. So we're doing 4x squared times 5x squared, which is 20x to the fourth. And then we've got 4x squared times that minus 2xy, or you can think of it as plus a negative. But you're going to get minus 8x to the third y. And then when I distribute that 4x squared to that last term in the parentheses, I'm going to get a positive 4x squared y squared. Okay, now let's look at the last one. The last one, I have a parentheses within a bracket. So I'm going to look at that bracket and say, okay, what am I going to start with first? So I have a 2a minus 3 times an entire parentheses. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and just distribute that negative 3. I kind of, see if I can show you this. Think of it as almost like this 2a is not there. So that's what we're going to focus on first, where you're distributing that negative 3. Now I am going to write that back in so we don't forget about it. And it was a 2a. So I'm going to start with distributing that negative 3. So I've got a negative 3 plus 3a. Now I can't forget about the 2a that I have there, so I've got a 2a, and then I'm also just going to bring down that a that is in front of the bracket. Now the bracket's not fully simplified, so I'm going to do that first. I'm going to collect like terms. I have 2a plus 3a, so that's like 2 apples plus 3 apples. I got 5 apples minus 3. So that bracket is now simplified. I can't go any further, but I need to bring that a down in front, and so now I have a times that whole binomial. So I'm going to distribute that a, and that gives me 5a to the second minus 3a.